Brasel. Brasel, dude, you're like 2 weeks late on this video. Get up.
Stupid Aggro Sky shmup master Zach. Oh, stupid gaming rebellion. Too hard. Oh yeah, I want to play this. The Nintendo's all the way over there. Lost levels. After the huge success of Super Mario Bros., Nintendo was quick to develop a sequel, one that would challenge Japanese players who had mastered the original. So, Super Mario Bros. 2 was released. It was released in 1986 for Famicom Disk System. When it was time to localize the game for North American audiences, President Howard Phillips from Nintendo of America declined it. He said it was too difficult. It was just too hard of a game to sell to North American audiences. Most people know the story of Doki Doki Panic and how it relates to Super Mario Bros. Nintendo was developing a Mario-like game, which was eventually developed into a game featuring characters from Fuji TV's Yumi Kojo Festival of 1987. When Nintendo of America was ready for a sequel, Doki Doki Panic was developed into Super Mario Bros. 2. And this was the only sequel that we knew as North American gamers for many years until Super Mario All-Stars was released in 93? I can't remember. But it had both Super Mario Bros. 2 and The Lost Levels in the same pack. Some gamers took offense to the fact that The Lost Levels was deemed too difficult for North American players. But honestly, I'm glad that we ended up with the Super Mario Bros. 2 that we got. It's a better game and a better sequel. Don't believe me? Well, let's take a look at both games. The Lost Levels is a direct continuation of the original Super Mario Bros. You control Mario, moving him from left to right across the stage to the goal. Along the way, he'll encounter enemies such as Koopa Troopas, Goombas, and Piranha Plants. The graphics are very similar to the game that preceded it. Character and enemy sprites are largely identical, along with the floating bricks and question blocks. The backgrounds are a bit more varied than before, with a bit more detail and even a few levels that use alternate color palettes such as a very autumn-like atmosphere and a cloudy sky level. The Lost Levels is incredibly difficult, even for seasoned veterans of the original Super Mario Bros. The level design is littered with tricky jumps and frustrating enemy placement. There are hidden warp zones that will take you back to the beginning of the game. That's not to say it's poorly designed, because it definitely isn't. This is just a masterwork of the evil geniuses at Nintendo who embraced the term Nintendo Hard to the extent that the Japanese commercial featured angry gamers cursing in frustration. In addition to playing as Mario, you are also able to play as Luigi, who can jump higher but is much harder to control, as he has less traction when turning. While his high jump can be very useful, his handling makes the game a notch harder than playing with Mario. After finishing the game without taking any warp pipes, you're treated to an extra 4 levels that will repeat continuously until you die once. It's a neat little reward, honestly, and one of the levels even resembles the infamous Minus World from the original Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels is a good game, but it's not worth tearing your hair out over. It gets very hard very quick, and it's best suited to players who love challenges. If you get easily frustrated by difficult games, you may want to skip it. Super Mario Bros. 2 was the sequel that North American gamers got to the smash hit Super Mario Bros. It features the same running and jumping mechanics, but the brick-bashing, enemy-smashing, fireball-shooting gameplay has been changed. Mario and company are able to lift and throw objects, such as buried vegetables and enemies, as their main form of combat. The levels now allow you to backtrack to the left, unlike the previous game, and also feature vertically scrolling sections where platforming and climbing proficiency are a must. The graphics are a huge step up from Super Mario Bros. Gone are the blocky and primitive-looking sprites and backgrounds, replaced with a very detailed and colorful cast of cartoon-looking characters and locales. There are different worlds as well. You'll traverse tropical hills, sandy deserts, and an icy ocean filled with whales. One of the most notable differences between Mario 2 and the original is the ability to select one of 4 characters to play through the game as: Mario, Luigi, Princess Toadstool, and Toad. Each has their own unique abilities, Mario being the well-rounded character, Luigi is the high jumper, Princess has a long-lasting jump, and Toad is incredibly quick. The game has a great difficulty curve, with the game getting gradually harder as it goes on. It starts nice and easy and ends tough. Some characters are better suited for some levels, and unfortunately, you can't change characters between deaths like you can in later ports, but finding out who works in what situation is still fun. Super Mario Bros. 2 is a fantastic game that you should absolutely play if you haven't, though I'm sure at this point, most people who are interested in retro games are already very familiar with it. I remember in the early days of the internet, people on message boards would rage at Nintendo of America for dare thinking that they weren't good enough gamers for the Lost Levels as Super Mario Bros. 2. Well, I remember playing Lost Levels a lot on the All-Stars cart, and honestly, I didn't enjoy it. I tried to beat it countless times, and I would just get angrier and angrier, and that kind of defeated the purpose of me playing a game to unwind. I've long been on the side of the turnip-throwing Mario 2 as the true sequel, but I wanted to look at them both side by side to see if I was missing something. On the surface, you'd think the only thing these two games have in common are the fact that they are both platformers starring Mario. That's not too far off, but there are a few other things to mention. Okay, maybe one. Both Mario 2s feature a character select. The Japanese original lets you play as Mario or Luigi, as I mentioned earlier. And as I also mentioned earlier, the North American sequel gives you 4 different characters to choose from. The difference here is that in the Japanese Mario 2, you are stuck with the plumbing brother you selected at the beginning of the game. No chance to mix it up at any point. Super Mario Bros. 2 that we received here in the States at least gives you the option to choose a new protagonist after completing each level. In your first playthrough of Mario USA, you're not going to know who the best character is to tackle each stage, but at least when you play through it again, you'll have the option and not be stuck with, say, Princess, who may have a long-lasting jump, but can't pick up vegetables quickly to save her life. In the Lost Levels, if a particular stage is more suited to the high-jumping Luigi, and you started the game with Mario, too bad. Not that it's that big a deal, because playing as Luigi is essentially hard mode for a game that's already excruciatingly difficult. Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels is 100% without a doubt a Super Mario Bros. Game. It feels like a Super Mario Bros. Game, it looks like a Super Mario Bros. Game, and it plays like a Super Mario Bros. Game. But honestly, to me, it feels like a glorified expansion pack of the original. The Lost Levels really isn't that much improved from the original formula. Sure, there are small additions such as the poisonous mushrooms, bloopers in the dryland levels, and red piranha plants that don't halt their chomping just because Mario is standing next to a pipe. The level design is well thought out, but it's so difficult that it would have definitely turned me off to future games in the series had I played it as a youngster. The original Super Mario Bros. Is a lot more fun, even if you've already played it to death. The difficulty curve increases gradually. Level 1-1 is very simple and introduces you to the mechanics of the game very well. And as the worlds fall to your plumber power, each stage gradually gets more difficult. The Lost Levels gets pretty damn hard by World 3, but it does kind of make sense. Since the games are so similar, you can't have an identical difficulty curve, or the second game would have offered nothing new to players. That's where the North American Super Mario Bros. 2 comes in. Instead of just ramping up the difficulty of the original game, keeping everything, including the storyline, the same, it gives us a completely new experience. It builds on the original formula by keeping the running and jumping mechanics that we're used to, and includes vertically scrolling areas, a new way to attack enemies, and vastly improved graphics. It ramps up the difficulty gradually through the game, getting you used to the new gameplay mechanics early, allowing you time to master them before the game gets too hard. So it's familiar, yet new, like a sequel should be. And now I get to the main argument as to why Super Mario Bros. 2 isn't the true sequel to the first game. It was originally Doki Doki Panic, and this one is hard to dispute. The game wasn't originally a Super Mario Bros. Game. Well, maybe I can justify it this way. Doki Doki Panic was a licensed game, created to promote the Yumi Kojo festival put on by Fuji TV in 1987. But the game did exist as a prototype before it was used to include the Yumi Kojo mascot characters. Of course, this is speculation, but who's to say that had the festival not come up, Nintendo would have used the prototype game to develop a sequel for the North American audiences anyway. Additionally, Doki Doki Panic was already heavily influenced by Super Mario Bros. POW blocks, which appeared in the original Mario Bros., were present, as were Starmen, and familiar jumping and coin sound effects. The game was already pretty damn close to a Mario game. I don't think that the debate between the Super Mario Bros. 2's, Super Mario Bros. 2? Super Mario Bros. 2's, I don't know. I don't think the debate between the two Super Mario Bros. Sequels is really as strong as it once was. Most people I know are going to pick the United States, USA, North America. I don't know, who else got this? Most people I know are going to pick Super Mario Bros. 2, this one, over the Lost Levels as their preferred sequel in the Super Mario Bros. Franchise. But it's always something that's kind of been on the back of my mind. It was the subject of my first video when I did a review of Super Mario Bros. 2. But I didn't really delve too heavily into the Lost Levels and my feelings on that. So I figured it'd be worth a revisit.
Oh!
Had the Lost Levels been the sequel that Nintendo of America went with, would Super Mario Bros. Been as popular as it is now, today, in the West? Probably. I mean, Super Mario Bros. 3 would have eventually came out over here one way or the other, I'm sure. But it's kind of fun to speculate what would have been different had this game not showed up. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. What would have happened if this were not the Super Mario Bros. 2 that the Western audiences got? Leave a comment. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll have another Face-Off video in the near future. Got some cool stuff in the pipeline. I appreciate everything. All the views, everything. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Later.
That's a pretty cool option.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
you can change the color of Mario's hat.
Well, no, they control differently.
Do they?
Yeah. Mario's faster, and he has better traction, but Luigi has a higher jump, but worse traction. I believe
You don't want
that's
to leave
how
him
it is.
alone around your kids.
There you go, and that's Waluigi. So basically, we're going to go through and play some e-reader levels. These are levels that were for the Game Boy Advance version of Mario 3, and if you had an e-reader, you'd get some cards and you'd swipe them through. So I never got to play any of these levels. I'm sure Brad never got to play any of these levels. I'm sure a lot of people watching never got to play any
I
of
don't
these
even know
levels.
what a fucking e-reader is.
Yeah, we'll just start with this. So these are remade versions of the original Mario.